Thomas, so here's a question that I got recently. When you hear God speak to you, or how do you imagine God's voice sounds like when he speaks?
That's a really good question.
I know.
Um, it's probably a little bit of an anthropomorphic response as far as like a deep baritone. Um,
Yeah.
but I think there's also, especially the ones that seem clear, there's a clarity and a gentleness.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'd have to think about that more. What about you?
Yeah. When the person asked me, I was like, I gotta think about it a bit more. And I would say there's a calmness. There's not this um, pressure or push. It's more of like a welcoming, calm presence, if you will. That's usually what I hear. So, yeah, isn't that
Does
crazy?
it does it sound like me?
Well, surprising, it's not the, "Hey, it's the Lord," right? It's not Morgan Freeman either. It's just I can't describe it in words. I think it's almost like a voiceless, but um the presence, the welcomingness, if that's a word, which is not, but I'm making it a word, is a calming, calm, gentle, a beckoning call, if you will. So yeah,
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's how mystics would describe it too, as a call, like this beckoning
yeah,
call.
yeah, yeah.
Um, And I think I was trying to reflect the same thing as far as gentleness, just gentleness,
Mhm.
calmness, different words, um, but there is something about that, like, clarity too, where you're just like, "Oh,"
Yeah,
like,
I
there's
agree.
been yeah, for sure.
So
Alright, well, welcome to the Uncertain Saints podcast where curiosity meets Christ. My name's Thomas Pruitt, and I'm here with my co-host, Emmanuel Ngulu. So, just like we started with a question, we're gonna wrestle with a question, each
yeah.
day, Uncertain Saints. And today's question is this: Is doubt sinful?
Mm.
Is
Yeah,
doubt sinful?
yeah.
And so sometimes the modern church treats doubt like it's almost a contagious disease. And the
Mm.
church is uncomfortable with, they've made an effort with to stifle doubt. And a lot of times you hear something like this: you just need to have a little more faith.
Yeah, yeah.
Lean, lean not on your own understanding. But is
Mm.
this really a good approach to people who have doubts or who have questions with faith? Is doubt really the sign of a weak spirit, or is it something else? Maybe like the engine of a robust faith.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
just to start, Emmanuel, has there ever been a time where you've experienced this kind of pushback from a spiritual mentor, pastor of the church?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I like the way you laid it out. Just the way we hear about doubt is pretty negative. And so, yeah, I was in seminary, and there was this well-known professor who I won't name, but he had a certain view on a certain passage, and I heard him talk about it in one of the lectures. And so after the lecture, I'm like, "Hey, you mentioned this. Can we meet and talk?" And we did. And he told me before the meeting, read my article that has more details. So I read it, and I still had questions. Right? I didn't think it was wrong per se, but I just had questions for clarity's sake. And so I met with them, and just meeting with them was just such a letdown. In fact, since that meeting, because of that meeting and other things prior to that, I'm just like, this guy is not personable. I connected with different professors while I was in seminary, but this guy, we just never connected on a personal level, which is fine. Because I think his approach was just this sense of like, how do you not get it? Like, why are you
Yeah.
questioning me? Was kind of the mindset, right?
Yeah.
This renowned scholar. And so yeah, so I had a question. I was wrestling with some stuff, and his view wasn't necessarily popular, right? So it was right that I wrestle with his view and thoughts. But the fact that he shut down my questioning and the skepticism I had or my doubts was just kind of I would say a letdown. And I was like, well, I will never be friends with you, which is okay. But it really just changed my thoughts about that professor. 'Cause I couldn't
Yeah,
doubt, I couldn't wrestle.
yeah, and it's interesting. I think 2 things. One, like,
Hmm.
is his response coming from a place of ego
Mm,
versus biblical, counsel? And 2, I think that's why for us, it's so important to make uncertain saints in this place together
yeah,
a
yeah,
safe
yeah, yeah,
space to invite questions and to wrestle. So,
yeah, yeah. What about you? Any stories
yeah,
about doubts and whatnot?
yeah, I think mentioned it last episode, but I didn't come to faith until like late high school. So it was really
Yeah.
early college where I started um, learning a lot about my faith. And I
Hmm.
went to, not that it was an atheistic school, but in many ways there were lots of people that did not believe or have faith,
Yeah.
and so I was often challenged as an academic and as a scholar, to hold the tension between my faith and some
Hmm.
of the positions and things we were learning about. And so I always felt like to be a good disciple, to be a faithful follower of Jesus, I had to defend the faith.
Mm,
And
hmm.
yet
Hmm.
I had many of the same questions, hesitations, and doubts that professors and colleagues and peers had at the same time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it really it was a combination of probably my own ego as well, and just m- potentially my mentors, and some of the guys I was around. But it really, if I could have been in a position to not just defend the faith but to be curious, it
Mm,
would have been wonders for my own faith because it really stifled my curiosity for a lot of years.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting you said to be in a place where you don't have to defend the faith, but to wrestle with it, to engage with it,
Mhm.
right? Two different um approaches, right? I hadn't thought about that like that. That's good.
Well, and I think you can feel that bodily.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
there's a and obviously there's both some intensity in both of those, but one
yeah,
is just that defensive posture and what that
yeah.
feels like versus engagement.
Oh
Engagement
yeah, I gotta
engagement
defend. I gotta defend. I gotta defend. I
yeah,
gotta defend. Like, right?
yeah, defense versus engagement, right?
Yeah,
And so I was put on the defense quite a bit, and so
yeah,
yeah, and that pushed me
yeah.
more into probably being more adamant about some things that I don't believe now. So,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to ask what those are, but maybe later on you can share a bit more about what you
yeah,
don't believe anymore.
that's a much longer
Um,
episode.
yeah. But I mean, I think to be fair too, though, right? On one reading, it seems like there are biblical passages that speak about not doubting or speak against skepticism, right?
No doubt.
Um, So you think of like Proverbs 3, that you just quoted, verse 5, right? Not to lean on your own understanding. And so the idea is when people doubt, they're told, hey, don't lean on your own understanding, right? So it becomes a shield, a defense against hard
Yeah.
questions that could lead to doubt, right?
God's smarter
Um,
than you, and I'm smarter than you.
right, exactly, exactly. Or think about your namesake, doubting Thomas, right?
Tomas.
Me says like, "Hey, I won't believe in the resurrection until I see Jesus in front of me with the scars," right? And when Jesus shows up, he actually says, "Hey, yo, Thomas or Tommy, because you saw me, you believed, but those who have not seen me are blessed or more blessed because they have not seen me." So this reading could seem like it's saying, hey, you are more blessed when you believe and you don't doubt, right? When you believe in what you cannot see and you don't doubt. Um, I'm also thinking about James 1, where the whole thing about a double minded man who's unstable. So instead of being single-minded, approach. A double-minded person is someone who's questioning, who's doubting, and so yeah, so you have all these passages, and then how do we distinguish between this idea of being unstable and wavering, or honestly seeking, right? Because there are passages too, as you know, like that talk about it's okay to wrestle and to learn and to doubt. So how do you wrestle with both these things? We have doubting Thomas, Proverbs 3, James 1, with in fact we wrestle and doubt. And there are passages that talk about potentially wrestling. Why don't you maybe look into those passages maybe?
Yeah, I think, not to add more fire to the mix, but
Mhm.
to play
No, throw
devil's
more fire. Let's make it a big
throw more
fire.
yeah, that's why we're here, right? Is to throw more fire in the mix, before we talk about those passages in turn. But on the other hand, there are also
Mhm.
passages in the Bible that encourage readers to search out the answers to questions,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Even if we think about James 1, preceding that is actually to ask for wisdom, like to seek
yeah.
out truth. Psalm 25:5, guide me into your truth.
Mm,
There's a story in Jeremiah 5 that God says, if there's one honest man, just one
mhm.
honest man, not that he knows the truth, but that he's seeking after truth,
Yeah.
I'll forgive the city. And so if he's seeking
Mm.
after truth, it implies that he doesn't know truth. Like he's got
Yeah, yeah,
questions,
yeah,
he's got doubts that he's wrestling with.
yeah.
And there are other passages in John 8, the truth will set you free. The spirit of truth is going to guide us into truth. Philippians 4:8, whatever is true, think about such things.
Mm,
Often Jesus would be, and he would be with, and he would say, we should be like little children. And little children are curious. They
yeah.
ask, they ask questions like, right, you've got three kids.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
is that? How come? Why this,
yeah,
daddy?
yeah.
And
Like, I'm wearing a hat, and my daughter was like she came down here, I was like, "Why are you wearing a hat, dad?"
I almost
And
thought
I
the
told
same thing when I saw you wear I almost asked you the same question.
uh, my hair is not good today, so, you know.
Oh, got it, yeah. I get it. I always wear a hat. But there's one particular story that I think of
Mhm.
that's always encouraging for me, and that's the story of Gideon.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Gideon is, given a large task by God,
Mhm.
but he doubts. He's like and there's kind of this double doubt as far as like, "Wait a minute. Did I hear God correctly?"
Mm,
And 2, like, "God, are you really gonna do what you said you're gonna do?" And
mhm.
so there's this interesting dynamic, and God meets him in that place.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I'm always encouraged on this side, on the truth seeking side versus the question asking doubt side, that God meets us in those places. He literally
yeah.
sent the spirit of truth for us. And it's not
Mhm.
like you just become a believer and all of a sudden you have this automatic download of all truth possible. That would be nice.
That would be
Uh,
super nice.
but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So it seems like, again, we say this word a lot, but there's this tension in the biblical narrative. So,
Mhm.
what's the answer to our question? What should we do? And is doubt a sin?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as of right now, I would say I don't believe that Jesus or even the biblical text dismisses or discredits doubting or being skeptical. It does not discredit that. It does not say it's wrong. Um, but before I share why, let me share this. Like we all have limitations, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep,
No
I'm
matter how strong you are, you can only do a certain amount of push-ups. Or see, yeah, how many push-ups can you do without taking a break?
not as many as I used to.
Oh,
I've
mm,
become more
we're getting
finite in my dadness.
your dadness, bro. I kid you not. I woke up 2 days ago and my ankle was hurting. I
Yeah,
told
because you got
Kelly.
'Cause you got out of bed.
I went to bed, felt fine, woke up, my ankle, it doesn't feel right. No, rest of the day. And Kelly goes, "You're getting old." Um,
You
so
sprained your ankle sleeping.
yeah. But yeah, no matter how physically strong you are, right? You can only do so much push-ups, right? You can only handle so much knowledge, no matter how smart you are mentally. You can only love so much. And it's because we're limited, right? You're a limited, finite being. And therefore, you can only do so much. I would say doubting is a reality in life because we're finite. So just
Mm,
like my physical limitations, my mental limitations, they're all because I'm finite. I would say doubting is because I'm finite. And so, because of that, doubting is not sin, it's not wrong, it's a part of being finite, the way God made us. And so, I would say doubt is a struggle to understand, it's an open window, which is different from unbelief, which is the refusal to believe, having a closed door. And this unbelief leads to what the Bible calls the hardening of the heart. So I
mm,
think when the Bible discourages, on one reading, doubt, it's not necessarily doubt, it's discouraging unbelief in the face of evidence, as opposed to the Bible, the Lord welcomes our doubt, our wrestling with an open hand. And so, in light of that, what do we do about Proverbs 3, Thomas, and James 1? Let me go through that real quickly for the sake of time.
yeah,
But I think
that'd
when
be
Proverbs 3, go ahead.
I said that would be good. Yeah, let's go through these.
Yeah. When Proverbs 3 says, like, don't lean on your own understanding, this is not a proverb to say, stop thinking. Um, it's more of it saying, hey, in all that you do, which is the next part of the verse, in all that you do, acknowledge God, right? So it seems like this passage is saying, hey, trust the Lord and don't lean on your own self, right? Trust God because God has proven to be faithful over and over and over and over again, as opposed to trusting a finite, limited self. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not. So it's not discouraging.
that trust is so big
Yeah.
because, like, and in fact, in many ways, it feels like trust actually opens the window even more to be able to ask
Yeah.
th those questions.
Yep.
Uh, right, like, your kids feel safe around you, so they ask
Hmm.
questions where
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
feel if they don't feel safe with the teacher at school, like, they're not gonna ask those questions, so I think it's an interesting connection point between those 2,
Hmm.
but there definitely is a difference between asking questions and doubts versus trust.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So Proverbs 3 is not discouraging doubt. It's saying trust, right? Be open to the Lord. Um, what about your namesake, Mr. Thomas?
Yeah,
Um,
doubting Thomas. What about that doubting Thomas? He's got a bad rap in church history.
yeah. Um, I think what Thomas asked is actually normal, right? Like people who die, especially who die the way Jesus died, don't come back to life, right? Even if that person does miracles or claims to be God, which was not uncommon in the first century. There were other people who did miracles who also claimed to be the Son of God or the Messiah, and they died and they stayed dead. And so, even though Thomas gave up most of his 3 years to follow this rabbi who claimed to be Messiah in what he did and what he said, who did miracles, he was killed. And so, Thomas has every right to be like, well, he's not what I thought it was. And so, when he heard someone say, hey, he's back to life, his response is actually pretty normal, right? I mean, if someone told me, "Hey, I have aliens in my house," I'm going to be like, "Okay, show me the evidence. Take me to your house. Show me a video," right? And now this might be AI, so I might need more hard
Yeah,
evidence. Matt.
Yeah, video evidence.
Yeah, and it's what Thomas says, is that he won't believe until he has evidence in front of him with the scar. Once he Jesus with the scar, and so he wasn't just being difficult. He wanted to experience, I would say, what the other apostles had already experienced. Right? They encountered Jesus. Well, he wants the same thing too.
Yeah.
Right?
I
And
think
so,
what's interesting too is, obviously when the disciples first see Jesus, they're like, they don't recognize him.
right?
Like,
Yeah.
there's been a physical change, in how he looks that they don't recognize him. And interesting too, and I've gotten this from Marty Solomon over at the Bayma podcast, and if
Hmm.
I'm making a mistake in attributing that to him, then that's my fault, but talked about how Jesus actually told Thomas, like, because people have claimed to be the Son of God, and because they've made these claims, you
Yeah.
actually need to make sure that it's me.
Yeah. Mm,
Um, so it was part of his protection of the disciples that he's like, let's make sure that this guy is not a false Christ.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's another interpretation as well as we think about doubting Thomas.
That's good. Yeah, I haven't thought about that way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because there were other people who claimed to be the Messiah. In fact, it's what the Pharisees said is, hey, let's make sure there's guards at the tomb, just so his disciples won't go steal the body and claim that he, rose from the dead. So that's good. That's good.
That that's
Um,
an I think this is important too, like,
mhm,
regardless of the interpretation,
yeah,
right? If it was that, um, that he did have some doubts and
yeah,
reprimanded, like, God was still gracious and used Thomas in incredible ways,
mm,
right?
mhm,
Like, Thomas is often attributed of taking the gospel to India,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and
and being martyred there.
yeah, being martyred there and but being faithful to share the good news,
Hmm.
which maybe we can talk about on another episode.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Well,
is
I
the good
mean,
but to take that over there, like, God still uses that regardless of your
yeah,
interpretation.
yeah. Well, and I think he makes the strongest claim of the identity of Jesus in the Gospels, right? I think I could be mistaken. He calls Jesus after Christ shows up, my Lord and my God, my Kurios and my Theos,
Mm,
right? Like no one in the gospel narrative calls Jesus those two things at the same time. You might get, master or teacher, you might get the son of God or whatever, but to call
yeah.
him my Lord and my God, that's a
When I
pretty
think
powerful claim.
and prior to the crucifixion,
Mhm.
Jesus had told the disciples, like, "I'm going to die."
Yeah.
And Thomas was the one that was like, "Well, let's go with him and die too."
Yeah. 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 So he gets a bad
But
rap for doubting.
gets a bad rap for a cool guy.
Yeah. I'm just saying. That's why, so I'm glad you doubted,
So
Thomas.
stop doubting Thomas.
Oh, stop doubting Thomas. I like that. I like that.
Uh,
I'm about to use that one day. Um,
yeah.
yeah. So James 1, I think it's verse 6 through 8. The double-minded man, unstable in all their ways. It's understood to be like doubting and questioning makes you unstable.
Mm,
And people will use this to shame other people who have questions. But I think here too, they're missing the point. When James warns against doubting, the Greek word that he uses is diakrino, which means to be at odds with yourself, right?
mm,
And he follows that up with by calling that person double minded, which means a two souled person.
ooh,
And
two
so
soul.
yeah. So James isn't talking about someone who has an intellectual struggle or has hard questions. He's talking about someone who is trying to walk in two opposite directions at the same time, right? It's like asking God for a map when you've already decided you ain't going that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's like this
absolutely.
is probably a bad example. Um, uh, I don't know about there's a video on TikTok or Twitter where a couple are basically shopping for like fruits or whatever, and the husband like will get a fruit, show the wife. She's like, "Nope, I don't want that. Nope, I don't want that. I didn't want this in the first place." And then, but earlier she asked, "Hey, come shopping with me," right? Uh, that's kind of the idea there. Or think about like when um I don't know. I can't like I don't know. But the point is someone who basically, hey, wants something, but doesn't really want what they're asking for because they already made up their mind already, right? So they're at odds with themselves, and so that's what James is talking about here in this particular
Mm,
passage about a double-minded person. And so James isn't worried about doubt or the lack of uncertainty. He's more about like a lack of commitment. Are you actually committed to God? God does not get angry when you lack answers or you're questioning. In fact, the verse after or before this actually says, hey, God gives wisdom generously to anybody who
ask.
asks, right? And so God wants us to be honest and to be all in our seeking, in our questioning, wrestling, instead of having one foot out and one foot in, right? That's the problem. You know, I'm going this way. I want to go this way. That makes no sense, right? Wherever you go, God's like, go there and I'll meet you there and I'll be generous to you there. And then so I would also add throughout the rest of the Bible, right? People doubt and question the Lord, and God meets them and answers them, right? A classic example is Moses at the burning bush. He
Ye
questions, and God gives him signs. God answers him. It's only after he receives the signs that and he says, "You know, I'm not going to go." That's when God's anger burns against them, right?
um,
And so throughout Scripture, people doubt, and God doesn't tell them stop doubting. Instead, I would say God meets them and gives them the answers we need. When he feels like he needs to, wherever they are at. And so doubting is just part of what it means to be a follower of Jesus, to be human, I would say.
yeah,
So,
and I think again too, like, God still meets Moses in that place, and
yeah,
over like, his anger fades.
yeah, yeah,
Like, it's so fast,
hmm
and he continues to use Moses in mighty ways, and so I think, like you said, there's this tension between there's growing pains, that are actually required, in many ways. But I think the best division actually comes down to that verse in James. We're talking about being a two souled or a double minded or
yeah,
a
yeah,
divided person.
yeah,
And so, right, when we get wisdom, if we ask for wisdom and get wisdom, like the failure is to not pursue that truth, to pursue that wisdom. But when there are legitimate questions and doubts, right, there seems to be lots of grace.
yeah,
And again too, like even if we do mess up, right,
right,
there's still grace in that
yeah,
place. So
yep,
I think
yeah,
I think for us as believers, as people who have questions, we need to really be mindful and not try to use authority or ego,
yeah,
the I said so fallacy, or well the Bible says fallacy. I think it's better, instead of being on the defensive, like we started with the podcast, like, why not be engaged?
yeah, yeah,
Sit with someone in their doubts,
yeah,
ask
yeah,
questions. And you know what the most beautiful thing that you could say to someone is?
hmm
I don't know.
yeah,
Because the reality is that there's so many of us don't know, and many of us have the same questions. And so if we can just say, I don't know, I'm not sure. Let's seek it out together.
yeah,
This is what it looks like to faithfully follow Jesus
yeah,
and to do
yeah,
that in community.
yeah,
And so I think, like we've discovered, having faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's
mm,
actually moving forward in the presence of it.
yeah. Yeah.
doubt is
No.
the thing that makes faith real,
Yep.
and in kind of this counterintuitive sense.
Yep.
So, an
No,
interest
that's well put. Well put. Um, I mean, if God is infinite, we're finite. How can we not have questions, ponderings, curiosities, and doubt about things, right? And in our doubts, like you said, He meets us there, and it's how we grow, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
that's really good.
Good chat, man.
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, we don't want this to be a one-way street. And so if you're listening, watching, and if you're wrestling with questions that feel too dangerous for Sunday morning, we want to hear it. So reach out to us at uncertainsaints@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. Let's lean into the uncertainty together. If this episode has helped you feel a little less alone in your doubt and wrestling, please share it with a friend. Leave us a review. It helps with the algorithms and helps other uncertain saints find the fold. So here's a little blessing as we close. May the Spirit of truth lead you into all truth. When your mind is divided and your heart is heavy with questions, may you find that you are being held by an anchor that does not pull up when the waves come. May you have the childlike heart to ask why and the mature faith to trust the Father's hand while you wait for the answer. Grace and peace to you on the journey.